Tonight, saving Social Security.
It would be unconscionable if we fail to act, and act now.
What's going to happen? How will it affect your family? New fallout from TWA 800. How safe are the 747s? Tonight, urgent warnings to inspect hundreds of jets. In depth tonight, an NBC News investigation. An American charged with selling arms to Iran. And the superstar who sang her heart out.
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw.
Good evening. We begin tonight with a subject that affects every American, worries each generation in a different way. Seniors worry they'll lose benefits they already have. The middle-aged are concerned it won't be enough. Many of the young are convinced there will be nothing left when they get there. It is Social Security, of course, and suddenly it is the Titanic of American politics, a popular but perilous journey. Tonight, the president started a national dialogue, and NBC's Claire Shipman was there.
Tom, it's usually an issue that politicians try to sidestep, but this year, everyone's staking out a position on Social Security.
In 1979, it had dropped to...
Preaching the need to change and protect Social Security at the same time, President Clinton unleashed a national dialogue on reforming the 63-year-old system today in Kansas City.
But just as we put our fiscal house in order, we can and must put Social Security in order.
Taking questions from citizens on everything from what age benefits should begin to savings.
What makes you think people are going to save?
And even those far from retirement came armed with strong opinions. These local 7th graders had unenviable homework for the last month, finding Social Security solutions.
I think the best one is to raise the retirement age.
I think our group recommended that you raise the payroll tax like maximum.
They're not the only ones with proposals, but why the need to fix the system now? Longer life expectancy. When the system was created in 1935, people retired at 65, but often didn't live to be much older. Today, the average life expectancy is 75 years, with many living well past that. And baby boomers. That generation is so large that the system will be severely strained in the next 20 or 30 years as they retire. What can be done? Proposals brought up today include raising the retirement age, raising Social Security taxes, cutting benefits, and privatizing or letting individuals invest their own money for their own retirement. That's an idea gaining increasing support from all sides. Republican Newt Gingrich and Democrat Daniel Patrick Moynihan are both advocates. Now, the White House is leery about privatization. Advisors here worry. They say they're afraid that could gut the system for those who need it most. But in fact, there is no formal White House proposal yet for reforming Social Security. That won't come until the end of the year, when the president's advisors are hoping that the public will be more fully on board with the idea that something has to change. Tom?
Thanks, Claire Shipman, tonight. There are so many controversial parts of the Social Security system and so much misunderstanding. Many people believe they're only getting back what they put in, when in most cases now, they get back much more. Then there's the question of where the money goes and what happens when it gets there. More on that tonight from NBC's Mike Jensen.
When it comes to Social Security, the Morgans of Charlotte, North Carolina think the government is conning them.
The American public needs to know the real story of, is the money there or isn't the money there?
We first interviewed the Morgans 3 years ago. Tim was 27, his father Buddy 52, his father Irv 74. They didn't think much of Social Security then.
But I think at some point the system's going to have to be changed.
And they think even less of it now. Why? Not enough straight talk from the politicians. Too many myths about Social Security. Myth number one, that the system is taking in too little money. Reality, it's taking in too much. Working Americans pay about $50 billion a year more into Social Security than the government needs to pay benefits, because the Social Security tax rate is so high. Myth number two, that the extra money collected from people like the Morgans goes into a Social Security trust fund to be used for future generations. Reality, experts say the trust fund is nothing more than a shell game.
You bet it's a shell game. People don't understand what's happening with their money.
The fact is, the money isn't there. The federal government uses all that extra cash for roads, military aircraft, even new buildings. What goes into the trust fund are government IOUs, right now $670 billion worth. The government does owe that money and is obligated to repay it to the Social Security Trust Fund, but that would mean higher taxes. So what will happen? There'll probably be stricter limits on age and benefits when Tim and the nation's 76 million baby boomers retire 20 or 30 years from now. For now, the most the Morgan family and every other American can hope for is a little more honesty about the problem. Mike Jensen, NBC News, New York.
Still ahead tonight, medical news that every family should know, a machine that is a lifesaver.
I was given life again. I was given another life, more time to spend with my wife and my children.
New advances in a familiar medical device that can mean the difference between life and death. And a surprising new weather report. What's coming after El Niño? Now to the lessons learned from the tragedy of TWA 800. Tonight, the government is urging inspections as soon as possible of 747s that may have the same defect as the one that is suspected in causing the devastating explosion. We have more now from NBC's Robert Hager.
Investigators probing the crash of TWA 800, still concerned about what caused its center fuel tank to explode. Today called for major rewiring of thousands of older model planes in the U.S. Not only 747s like the TWA that crashed, but thousands of other planes as well. 737s, 57s, and 67s, even some Airbuses. Rewiring that would be time-consuming and cost millions of dollars. Of concern, the system that measures fuel in the plane's tanks, which are located here in the wings and in the belly of the plane. The wires that run that system, from the tanks up to the cockpit gauges, are often bundled together with hundreds of other electric wires. And the fear is that electricity from those other wires may be seeping over into that system and into the fuel tanks. This is a cross-section of such a bundle. When the fuel system wires from TWA 800 were examined, there were signs of damage from possible shorts. And similar damage was found on fuel system wires from 5 other planes. Today, the National Transportation Safety Board called for all fuel system wiring to be changed. Either special new shielding should be added, or the fuel tank wiring should be completely separated from any other electric wires. Not only on some 700 older model 747s, but on thousands of other model planes that may have the same wiring system. Beyond that, the Safety Board called for special new circuit breakers in the fuel tank wiring. The new circuit breakers would provide additional protection against extra electricity getting into the tank. The National Transportation Safety Board can only recommend, but the Federal Aviation Administration, which can order the changes, says it's already been considering such steps and agrees with the intent. Investigators caution they still don't know just what caused TWA's tank to explode. The wiring is just one theory. But they believe rewiring could prevent another tragedy one day and save lives. Robert Hager, NBC News, Washington.
The extreme weather brought to us by El Niño apparently is just a taste of the things to come. Government forecasters are out with the latest report on what all that rain and warm weather really means, and it means now and in the future. Here's NBC's Fred Francis.
El Niño pounding coastlines with destructive surf, creating firestorms in Indonesia, droughts in Hawaii, and floods in California, all just the beginning, according to a new report today by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration.
What we're seeing right now is a trend towards more extreme events. We're getting more rainy events, we're getting more droughts around the world, and they're getting stronger in intensity.
El Niño, which scientists now say is one of the major climate events of the century, is just part of an unmistakable 40-year trend linked to global warming. Already it has been the warmest and wettest January and February in 104 years. Another record, March gave 14 northeastern cities their hottest March day ever. For 20 cities, February was the hottest ever. And for 10 other cities, February was the wettest ever. And remarkably, places like Buffalo, Dubuque, and South Bend, normally buried in snow, saw little. It is all part of a hotter, damper world that we all must become, well, accustomed to, according to scientists. This year's 4 to 6 feet of rain in some parts of California may very well be the norm in the years ahead. The government says this global warming will have a huge impact on agriculture, on water management, on virtually everything from insurance rates to vacation planning.
And emergency managers, water resource planners, all those people who are affected by weather events should get ready for this, because this is the kind of world that we can expect to see.
This record-breaking El Nino, experts say, is but a glimpse of the extreme weather to come. A much warmer, wetter world. Fred Francis, NBC News, Washington.
Up next here, NBC News in depth tonight, a special investigation. Did this man smuggle sophisticated U.S. weapons supplies to Iran? We'll have some answers next. But first, from CNBC, let's take a look at what happened on Wall Street today. The Dow giving back most of yesterday's historic gains, dropping back below 9,000. The Nasdaq also down sharply today. On In Depth tonight, we have an NBC News investigation into some alarming charges involving an American businessman accused of selling sophisticated military supplies to Iran. That would be a violation of an arms embargo that's been in place since the Iran hostage crisis 19 years ago. One of the most surprising things about this story is where some of those supplies may have come from. The Pentagon itself. In fact, the U.S. military sells $24 million worth of spare parts a year on the open market. Right now, there are 100 warehouses full of surplus equipment around the country ready to be sold. So it may have been perfectly legal for the businessman in question to buy the materials, but it is what he allegedly did with them afterward that's gotten him in trouble with the law. In Depth tonight, our investigation from NBC's Andrea Mitchell.
This man, Daniel Malloy, at the center of a suspected plot to arm Iran's Ayatollahs with state-of-the-art weapons. Arraigned today in Newark, New Jersey. Charged with selling Iran advanced Phoenix missile parts for F-14 jets.
Phoenix missile is a very sophisticated weapon.
So it's potentially a threat to our own fighter pilots.
Oh, certainly.
Malloy, who runs an aviation supply business, denies the charges, pleaded not guilty today. His lawyer.
The government's allegation is completely unfounded.
But the U.S. believes today's charges involve only a small part of a much bigger smuggling operation. And most surprising, investigators tell NBC News, the U.S. government may itself be contributing to the problem. In Pentagon warehouses, spare parts for sale, leftovers of the Cold War. And now investigators suspect the starting point of an illegal arms pipeline to countries the United States accuses of terrorism.
We're talking about tanks, we're talking about helicopters, we're talking about attack helicopters, heavy equipment, trucks.
How is this possible? Not enough controls over the Pentagon's own used weapons bazaar.
One item which I found particularly alarming was the payload delivery system for a nuclear missile.
The U.S. says American weapons get to Iran through places like Singapore, and this man, Joseph Menon, Malloy's middleman, also indicted on the same charges in New Jersey.
Very sorry, I can't comment.
The government says Menon faxed this wish list to Malloy's company, a request for attack helicopter parts. And incredibly, while Malloy was already in jail on these smuggling charges, the Pentagon agreed to sell him even more weapons. No one at the Pentagon would speak on camera to NBC News. But U.S. Customs, the agency that worked this case, says the Defense Department has only 7 investigators worldwide to track spare parts.
It certainly seems to be a small number of investigators to look throughout the world to ensure that abuse doesn't take place.
So who will keep an eye on these warships at the Philadelphia Naval Yard, the next big-ticket items on the Pentagon's auction block? Investigators wonder, where will they end up? Andrea Mitchell, NBC News, Washington.
When we come back, it's portable, it's easy to use, and it just might save your life. And later, from the cotton fields of Mississippi to the top of the country charts, a look at the life and the sudden death of Tammy Wynette. Now to the hot spots making news tonight. Texas House Majority Leader Dick Armey stands by his call for President Clinton's resignation, comments he made yesterday before a group of high school students.
If I had this kind of a documented record on me, I would resign. I'd be ashamed and resign from Congress. I think that's the appropriate response to give to young people.
Also in Texas, a collision between a school bus and an 18-wheeler near the town of Chapel Hill. At least 12 children have been hurt. 2 are believed to be in serious condition. Anyone who has ever seen a television show set in a hospital has seen a defibrillator. The doctor yells clear, and a patient's heart is given an electrical jolt with 2 paddles. Life saved in most cases. Not a real life, where defibrillators are moving out of emergency rooms. More tonight from NBC's Robert Bazell.
It happens 1,000 times a day in this country. People's hearts suddenly stop beating, and usually it's fatal. 95% who go into cardiac arrest die.
Sir, we're ready.
But death is not inevitable if victims are treated properly within minutes.
Well, we're estimating that we could save at least another 24,000 lives in the number of people that arrest.
The lifesaver? This device. It's called a defibrillator. We've all seen it in pictures of hospital emergency rooms. It delivers a jolt of electricity that restarts the heart.
All clear.
But now, new technology makes defibrillators portable, much cheaper, and more easy to use.
Anyone can learn how to operate a defibrillator in a very, very short period of time.
In fact, a computer voice gives simple step-by-step operating instructions.
Shock advised. Charging.
The machine even measures the victim's irregular heart rate and calculates how much of a charge is needed to restart the heart.
Because the machines are so easy to use, leading heart doctors think they should be in sports arenas, casinos, amusement parks, any place where large numbers of people gather.
This surveillance tape, shot at Boyd's Casino in Las Vegas, shows a customer who underwent cardiac arrest and was saved by the portable defibrillator the casino installed a year ago. Since then, another 4 lives have been saved. American Airlines has installed defibrillators on more than 200 planes and plans to add them to its entire fleet by the end of the year. The airline trains its employees to use them. That saved 54-year-old Robert Giggy's life. 8 weeks ago, he had just boarded a flight from Mexico when he went into cardiac arrest. Without the defibrillator, he would have died in minutes.
I was given life again. I was given another life, more time to spend with my wife and my children.
Life-saving machines, not now readily available, but if they were, they could save tens of thousands of lives like Giggy's every year. Robert Bazell, NBC News, New York.
When we come back, the real-life story that sounds just like the lyrics of the country music ballads she sang. Country music is the poetry of the working class, and the greatest country artists are the people who come from those roots. They are to blue jeans and heartache what Sinatra is to tuxedos and starry nights, what Jagger is to skin tights and hallucinogens. And tonight, country music is missing its first lady, the woman who gave Hillary Clinton that famous line about standing by her man. Tammy Wynette, gone at 55. Here's NBC's Roger O'Neill.
Her music is the soul of country. Big city or dusty Texas town, it doesn't matter. Tammy Wynette's songs mirror real life. On country music stations everywhere today, DJs brought the sad news.
I'm the First Lady of Country Music, merely 55, and that is way too young.
Chuck Leary says it's easy being a Tammy fan.
She sang about what we live. She sang about having kids, getting jobs, having no job.
Do you remember her first big hit?
I Don't Want to Play House. 1967 was her first really big #1. And
today I sat alone.
Despite her success, 50 albums, 30 million records sold, 39 top 10 hits, and 3-time Country Music Female Vocalist of the Year, it was her failures, from 5 marriages to booze to pills, that Wynette sang about.
Let's call it a day today.
I lived it. It was hard, it hurt.
But the strength of her music came from the reality of her life.
I think I wrote more and I sang better when I was sad, when so many things was happening to me. because I could put down on paper what I couldn't talk about, and I could sing it and pretend it had happened to somebody else.
Wynette never forgot the cotton fields of Mississippi where she came from, her days as a hairdresser, her arrival in Nashville with nothing but a burning urge to sing.
Was there a song for you that clicked?
They all have. And we'll miss that. We'll miss that.
Wynette's music came from her heart and will always play in the hearts of those who heard it. Everywhere. Roger O'Neill, NBC News.
There'll be more on the life of Tammy Wynette tonight on MSNBC at 10 Eastern. That's nightly news for this Tuesday. Tomorrow night, living longer, how you can avoid a heart attack or a stroke.
It might reduce their risk by as much as 25 to 40% of developing coronary heart disease or stroke.
What you need to know about what doctors are now calling the new cholesterol. I'm Tom Brokaw, and I'll see you back here tomorrow night.
NBC Nightly News is America's most watched evening news program.